Hi, I was thinking about recording this earlier today, then I had a lot of work, procrastinated a little bit, prioritized my practice, and now there's no light. Regardless, I have this sort of inertia or want or need to do it today, so here it is. 2 days ago, I self-diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum. It's ridiculous how happy I feel. I mean, it sounds very paradoxical or weird. I don't know, it doesn't matter. But the reason why it feels this way is because I don't care much about labels, honestly. And you could even argue that this isn't really even one, because I'm deciding by myself that this is where I fit, or a label that I can grab. On the other hand, why would you need anybody else to tell you what you are, right? And that's part of the thing, actually, because throughout my life I have felt different. Yeah, big surprise, we all feel different. I don't want to speak for anybody else, but anyhow, I'll speak to the specific things for which I felt weird. And the most obvious one is something that I now know that science has called misophonia. So misophonia is this auditory thing. It literally means hatred of sound. I don't really like the word hatred, whatever, that's the word they use. And basically what misophonia, or the way in which it presents, at least in me, and I've heard that this is the case for almost everybody with misophonia, is there are certain sounds that are really big triggers for my system. And what happens is that if those sounds, if I hear those sounds, my body feels like it's on fight or flight mode. It elicits, or they elicit just extreme emotions of anger, of fright, anxiety, all these things. And the thing is that it doesn't really tell me. There's no period of gradual preparation. That would be great, because I could remove myself from the place, but it doesn't tell me. So just instantly my body feels threatened, and it feels as if it's gonna die. It's like this very extreme sensation of fear and of being in peril. It has this added weird thing where, because I've been trained in society and I have learned many social cues and things, and just maybe out of common sense, I know that the specific sound that is causing my body to feel this way won't actually threaten my existence. To give you an example, the sounds that usually trigger this are sounds related to people alive, people eating, mouth sounds, people chewing chips, or slurping their sodas in the movie theaters and such. So they're kind of really ridiculous sounds to elicit that extreme reaction, and my mind knows that. So there's a side, or on top of my body feeling threatened and just about to die, my mind knows that my body's not going to die. So there's this fight between them, or argument, where my mind is like, don't be ridiculous, you're not gonna die from this, they're just chewing chips. And my body's like, no, I know, but I just feel that I'm gonna die, you have to remove me from here right now, this second, now, otherwise I'm just gonna die or explode. And then my mind says, okay, calm down, I'm gonna remove you, but oh my gosh, I'm gonna feel so ridiculous, why am I leaving? At the end, your friends accept you for who and what you are, and that's just what we should all do for everybody else. But anyhow, that's another topic. Yeah, misophonia was one of the things that, I've had that experience since I can remember, so certainly since childhood. The moment during the day that would present the most anxiety for me, when the time for dinner would approach, I would just become so anxious. It would be so hard for me. We would go on vacation. My father would rent an apartment or something with a room for the three children to stay in. And I remember that I would have to wait for my brother and sister to fall asleep, so I would go and sleep in the living room and then wake up before everybody else to go back to the bed, so nobody would find out, because I just could not stand the sound of their teeth screeching. They're sounds that actually, they trigger these very intense emotions that are in a way completely, they're irrational, and they don't overlap with most people's experience. So they're difficult to cope with, and what that brings to my life is that, it becomes difficult to live with a partner. The mere presence of another human being around is a threat. They are bound to eventually make a sound that will have this impact on me. And then there's the other side, where it also becomes difficult for relationships, romantic or friendships or even familial, where it's difficult for those who don't experience this to not take it personally. My family is very understanding now. I started talking about this with them very recently. I now wear earplugs all the time, and they help a lot, but if I can't take it anymore or something, I just tell them, I'm gonna go to the other room for a while, and they're fine with it. But that was just one of the things that I experienced, and back in the day when I was young, there weren't that many resources. Today you go on YouTube or search online and you find a lot of people, at least science doesn't know much yet, but at least you go online and that there are other people who have a similar experience, and that creates a community, and it helps you not feel alone, and also exchanging ideas and ways for coping is very helpful as well. Of course, when I was a child, I didn't know that was a thing, and I just lived, and then eventually I started noticing that it would happen to me. For instance, at school, I would wait for everybody to go into the classroom and sit and find their places, so I could sit way in the back, so I could kind of control spatiality and see where I needed to shift or move in case there was a sound that was bothering me. And then I started realizing that it was only my experience, and it didn't happen to other people. And then when I decided to start looking for other misophonics, or however they are called, or we are called, I was with a partner. Whenever we slept in the same bed, I would have to go to my side of the bed with a huge comforter in my ear. I hadn't discovered earplugs. I don't know which rock I'd lived under, and he would feel that I didn't like being near him. I started looking online, and there wasn't much. I just found a few articles, people kind of sharing their experience, and that was the first time when I said, oh wow, there are other people who actually experience this. Since then, I've been learning. It's been a learning curve. I discovered earplugs, which changed my life completely. I always have a set of earphones. I grew up mostly in Mexico, in a small town, and in the US in a small town as well. But then when I moved to Mexico City, one of the most chaotic and cacophonic. The difference between this city and other very chaotic cities as Kathmandu, or in my case, is that I understand Spanish, which is the language that is spoken here in Mexico. And for instance, in Kathmandu, I wouldn't understand the language. Kathmandu is in Nepal, so the level of information that my brain has to process is different and less, because I can actually zone out in Kathmandu, because I don't, since I don't understand the language, I don't have to process all those the stimuli. So yeah, earplugs. Then I just started being open about it with friends. I would just say, I have this thing. It's so ridiculous, but gum chewing is very difficult for me. I can do it, but when I hear somebody else doing it, it's difficult. And it's not that if I do it, it doesn't bother me, but the main difference is that I can stop it if it bothers me, but I cannot stop it in somebody else if it's hurting. So, and being open about all of this, and there are some friends that for whom it's difficult, and they and they don't stick, and that's fine, because that's how relationships are formed. And then there are others that find that our relationship is worth making small accommodations, which I also make. It has been really beautiful and humbling and touching to, to be with those friends, because as every human being knows, but especially those who, who probably, feel that there's something about themselves that isn't accepted in the world, it is very nice to be able to just be yourself and who you are, especially with people whom you love and who love you. So yeah, thank you to all of my beautiful friends. And as I was saying, that was one part of my experience, and there was still this, all these other layers. I knew that my brain processed information in a different way, talking to people and realizing that they, their way of seeing the world was very different to mine. I don't know, I knew that, my senses were heightened in a way. Of course, the sound thing, but also, I have a very acute sense of smell. Also, touch, I can feel, I can feel energies, of course, but that I have trained apart. Yeah, just difference in temperatures, or when I was a child, I remember I could go out into the snow with no jacket or anything, and just shorts and sandals and into the snow. Some of these things might sound like, well, that happens to me as well, but it's when you accumulate all the pieces that they become a pattern, and they throw certain information. So then I don't remember how, but I started researching autism. I don't know, at least in my experience, the image that I had of somebody with autism was somebody zoning out or zoned out and stimming. Stimming is repetitive movements that people make to reorganize their systems. And I didn't fit the idea that I had of what autism looked like. Then I started researching a little bit more and exploring, and even though it didn't fit with the idea that I had of it, I would check the boxes. I would read and I would say, oh yeah, this is my experience, this happens to me, this. And I'm not saying that everything did. As I have recently learned, if you know an autistic person or somebody on the spectrum, you know an autistic person or one person on the spectrum, because there is no, two people on the spectrum alike. I started suspecting that maybe I was on the spectrum, and very recently, I don't know if you all remember this series that came out called Atypical or Atypical, and I hadn't watched it, but my best friend tells me, oh, I saw this series and it's you. I researched even further, and it was just very clear to me, and it was so clear that was my experience. But still then, I would check all the boxes, but they wouldn't be what I would consider at that moment very extreme on me or in me or with me. So a few years ago, I went to a neurologist here in Mexico City with a friend of mine. It was her session, not mine. And I wanted to ask this doctor if it was something that he could help me with. It hadn't been even not even 3 minutes. He said, well, I know, I just by seeing you, you're not. What that left me feeling was, I didn't feel seen, of course, and he didn't ask me anything. His idea was that there was no way that I could be on the spectrum. So that kind of put me off from trying to get an assessment with that, and then it didn't become very relevant for me. And then I started a spiritual journey, and of course, no labels are needed. I did this whole research on identity, and part of the thesis is that labels are so ridiculous because they also need to be updated. It's like a CV that you write when you're, 11 and then or 16, and then you never update it, and the things that you were at 16 probably don't apply when you're 21 or 30 or so my experience kept being one. I wasn't interested in knowing if I was autistic or not, and I'll jump to very recently because I can't, there's nothing very big that I want to talk about after what I just said, but anyhow. So then a few days ago, there is something very relevant, and I love this part. This research that I did about identity, I went to Scandinavia on a journey, maybe like 5 years ago, and that's a whole other story. what resulted from that was a short novel. As of today, it's only in Spanish, it's being translated to English. But the title in English would be A Series of Poor Choices and Then My Life, a brief essay about identity. One of the characters, the main character kind of goes through this whole identity crisis because her junior high teacher calls her a different name. Very, very slightly different, but different. But one of the characters in the story is this boy whom this girl really identifies with. The important piece for me, at least, is that I named that character Aiden because I have a nephew whose name is Aiden, and I only met Aiden a few times in my life. I remember that one of the times that I went to their house, Aiden was stimming, and I think he was wearing headphones or something. He was very young. And as I said, I never met him, but there was, I probably felt a very strong connection with what was happening to him then. I used his name for this character, which is also a little bit relevant because it's the person whom the main character kind of relates and sees as, okay, yeah, there's somebody in the world who understands me. I'll jump forward to a few weeks ago. Actually, on Christmas, my brother tells me that Aiden's on Instagram, and and I get very happy and I start following him, and he's an amazing photographer. That leads me to start researching about autism again. Of course, today there's so much more information, and I just, I start checking the boxes again. Then I come across a couple of people who are talking about this on YouTube. One is Mom on the Spectrum, and the other one is Asperger's from the Inside. Thanks to both of them, actually. It was very nice finding them. So, I by this time I've checked many boxes already and taken all these tests as we all do. And there's this bingo thing that she's doing, and it's just like, oh yeah, that happens to me, that happens to me, that happens to me, that happens to me. And yeah, she doesn't fit the profile that I used to think autism had, nor him. And I should also add that these days that I went on this like interstellar rabbit hole researching, I just couldn't stop crying. It was just so emotional because I could finally put words to things that happened to me. And I'll stress again, or I'll underscore the fact that, yeah, I don't think labels are that important, or important at all, for the core of what we are. If we relate from there with other people, that's enough. Of course it is. But to navigate this world, it is very difficult if you can't name things. And I'm the first one to advocate for other ways of communication. That has been part of my research, my art practice. I communicate in all these other ways that are non-verbal with people and friends and animals, but still language is the primary source of interaction between modern human beings. So if you don't have words to explain things, it becomes difficult. And also it was, yes, and I feel kind of funny for saying it, but it was so nice and heartwarming to know that that there were other people out there that experienced this. Not that I ever felt unique or singular, because of course we're human beings. We're all very predictable, and neurosis is very, very similar. But still, it was so nice to feel welcome and have people to whom I don't have to explain my experience, but they just know it. And it was just so nice. So that's it. It has been... And I have many other ideas. For instance, this whole stimming thing. I'm a body-mind transpersonal therapist as well, and it's body-centered therapy. We trust the wisdom of the body, and that's what happens to the body. It self-regulates. Essentially, there's energy that is stored in the body, and when there's a sort of like an outlet for releasing it, the body makes all these movements and recalibrates in order to integrate that, that previously stuck energy into the body flow. So I'm so happy about about understanding the things behind what I experience. And I'm also incredibly excited about pairing the two to find or draw the parallels between. So yeah, that's it. Bye.